join. Okay, so there's three great unifiers of Japan. And before this period in time, which is in the early 1600s, Japan is just a series of warlords, and they're all fighting all the time. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
No.
No, you can't?
Can't hear you.
Oh, all right. I'll talk louder.
Yeah.
Is that better? Okay. So, we're at 1600, and these three gentlemen, and I'll show you their faces. The first is Oda Nobunaga, the second is Toyotomi Hideyoshi, and the third is Tokugawa Ieyasu. And these three men bring Japan together and make it one government. Now, there's kind of a little saying, and it's like, it has to do with like baking a cake. And Oda Nobunaga got together the eggs and the batter and all that stuff, and he put it in the bowl, and then Toyotomi Hideyoshi, he baked it, and then this guy, Tokugawa Ieyasu, he ate it. So, there you go. Now, I just wanted to say they're not just military generals, they're visionaries who saw beyond the chaos of their times with all that war going on. So, they each had a different circumstance to their life, and their collective aim was the unification of Japan. So, here they are. And we'll keep going. Now, the Edo period itself is the period between 1603 and 1868. And remember, the United States comes in about 1853 and forces Japan to open up. Because during this period of time, Japan shuts itself off from the rest of the world. It's now under the rule during this period of time of the Tokugawa shogunate, and there's about 300 feudal lords. Now, one of the things that the shogunate does to keep everybody in line is they force the feudal lords to have a place in the capital, Edo. So they have to have this fully furnished residence in the capital. They also have to maintain something out in the hinterlands where their lands are. Their families are pretty much under the thumb of the shogun, and they also have to bring all their samurai, their warriors in, and they have to do it like every other year. And it keeps them broke, and then they can't rise up, they don't have any money left, so that was good as far as the shogun was concerned. So there's economic growth, strict social order, isolationist foreign policies, a stable population, peace, and, this is the part we're interested in, popular enjoyment of arts and culture. So here's a little clippy from YouTube, because sometimes, no, a lot of the time, they can say it better than I can.
During the 17th century, the European countries were all competing for expansion. The Tokugawa shogunate of Japan decided the best way of avoiding Europe was to turn all the lights off and pretend they weren't in. Beginning in 1603, Japan was ruled by a military dictatorship founded by Tokugawa Ieyasu. This period is known as the Edo, or Tokugawa period. In an attempt to maintain stability, the social order was frozen into classes, with mobility between the classes strictly forbidden. Around 80% of the population were peasants who were forced to engage in agriculture to provide a stable source of income for the upper classes. Approximately 40% of the farmers' rice harvest had to be given as taxes to the lords. Another threat to the political stability of Japan was the powers of the West. Japan had suffered through a long period in which the states were at war, known as Sengoku. This period of civil war and unrest lasted from around 1467 to 1615. The shogun believed that this this was due to the introduction of Christianity by the Portuguese, as well as other foreign influences. Around 1633, the feudal Japanese military government saw the real possibility that Europe might try to colonize Japan. Spain and Portugal posed the biggest threat, bringing Christianity and colonial influence with them. They decided to take drastic measures to repel the European powers and closed Japan. The policy of sakoku, meaning chained or locked country, meant that a death penalty awaited any Japanese who had contact with the outside world, and very few foreign nationals were permitted trade rights. Japan controlled trade by only allowing specific points of entry into the country. In 1634, they created an artificial island just off the coast of Nagasaki to allow for some foreign trade. The island was named Dejima, or Exit Island. One of the only European nations allowed to trade with the Japanese was the Dutch. Instead of bringing religion and firearms, the Dutch only dealt in goods. The Dutch cemented their relationship with the Japanese government when, during the Shimabara Rebellion of 1637–38, the Dutch sent a gunboat to destroy the rebel stronghold. The Shimabara Rebellion was an uprising of Japanese peasants who were dissatisfied with the heavy taxation and local officials' abuses. As the majority of the peasants in the area had been converted to Catholicism by Spanish and Portuguese missionaries, the rebellion soon took on religious overtones. The rebels were supported by the Ronin, masterless samurai warriors whose lords had been dispossessed, and the Japanese government could only quell them with the help of the Dutch. This incident reinforced the government's belief that Christian ideas were the root cause of the unrest in the country, and pretty much put an end to the Japanese Christian movement in the 17th century.
I'm going to stop it for a minute and tell you that there are hardly any Christians today in Japan, and that is because at the time they could not understand how a god could allow himself to be put on a cross and die and go through all that torture and stuff. They go, that doesn't make any sense. So what they were doing was they were forcing, a lot of the peasants really, liked the idea of this. This was a god that seemed to have a lot of mercy and compassion, but the powers that be didn't like that, so they would make them walk. If you want to keep your life, you'll walk on this picture of Christ, and otherwise, if you didn't, they just kill you. So that was going on, and in essence, everybody in Japan is Shinto or Buddhist. Those are the two big religions, and most people there use them on and off their entire lives. They will start with something when they're very young, and it'll be like Shinto. That's the indigenous Japanese religion, or they then get married in a Buddhist temple, that kind of thing. So they just use them interchangeably, but there's no real Christian element. Unlike Korea, which has got Christians everywhere. They liked the message and they clung to it, and there's lots of them there. But that's another story. So anyway, I can keep going.
At 41 onwards.
Sorry. If this gets boring, we can cut it short and just keep going too. So, raise your hand if you're like, forget it, I'm over this, and we'll go on.
Japanese were allowed to trade through Dejima, and only a limited number of Japanese had access to this trade port. But other places in Japan allowed limited trade with other nations. The lords of the So clan of Tsushima traded with the Joseon dynasty of Korea.
It's
The
Joseon.
Matsume domain was located in Uzo, modern-day Hokkaido, and allowed trade relations with the Ainu people who lived on the surrounding.
It's Ainu. That drives me nuts. I'm going to stop this guy. Okay, we're going to go on to the next slide. This is the daimyo territories of Japan in 1664. So the yellow belongs to the shogun. So he's the big cheese in Edo. And the other cities are Osaka, Kyoto, and of course Edo. And both are in existence today. Now, all these other lands that are all these different colors belong to the different lords. And so, and they use that system of keeping them under their thumb by forcing them to come back and forth. The Gokaido is 5 centrally administered routes that connect Edo with the outer provinces during the Edo period. So, this is a series of roads, but I mean, there's people living all up in here, you know, but anyway.
Excuse me,
Yes,
where is Edo on the map?
let's see if we can find it.
Is it where number 1 is?
D, let's see. D, here it is, it's right there. It's Tokyo, is what it is.
Oh, okay.
That's the former name of Tokyo is Edo. Yeah,
Yeah, I've been to Japan, so I know a little bit of this history.
yeah,
And she's right about the pronunciation.
yeah. Okay, yeah, and be sure, and if you have something to say, speak really loud so that, you know, because I learn things from you too. So if you've been there, I've never been there. Be sure and say something.
Oh,
Yeah.
I've been there.
Okay,
But you are correct about the pronunciations that he's.
yeah, it just drives you nuts. You're like, you're on YouTube, can't you get your crap together? You know what I mean.
Speaking of pronunciation,
Yeah.
often the accent is on the second syllable, so we say Kyoto, but it's really Kyoto.
Yes,
And,
yeah.
or we'll say, I mean, they did that with other things too.
Ieyasu doesn't start with an E, it starts with an I, because they pronounce their I's like EREs. Did I say that right? Ieyasu.
That's good.
Because I used to wait on a lady when I was a grocery checker way back when, and, well, not that long ago, but anyhow, her name was Mrs. Ito. It was I-T-O. But you had to remember to call her Ito. Anyway. All right, here we go. Okay, so there's these 5 routes, and they're constructed by Tokugawa Ieyasu, and they're considered major routes. So those were the ones, this is Sankin Kotai, that requires the daimyo, those regional rulers, to travel along it. Okay, here's a picture of it in 1865. And here's, you know, little Japanese people standing under all these magnificent trees. So that's the Tokaido, which becomes, during the woodblock period of time, something that was very popular to draw and show in woodblocks. So we're gonna first look at the society in Japan. And the feudal structure is, there's an emperor, he's in Kyoto, and he has no real power. He does a whole bunch of religious ceremonies there, and of course he's dressed really nice, and he has a court and all, but he doesn't have any real power. The shogun made sure of that. The shogun sits in Edo, and he has the power. He decides everything. The daimyo are underneath, and they are noble lords and vassals of the shogun. Samurai are underneath them, but they are servants and warriors of the daimyo. A ronin is a samurai whose leader has possibly died or been just lost his ability to have samurai or whatever, and so they run around with no master. Peasants, and this is the majority of the Japanese people, and they're farmers, they pay taxes, and they're seen as very important. The artisans are the ones that are working with metal and wood and pottery and that kind of stuff. they're not so important as the peasants because they use rice as money. So the merchants who are actually getting filthy rich during this period in time are seen as not so great. Nobody sees the purpose of a merchant. So these men and women and families are getting filthy rich, but they're not allowed to show it. They have to wear on the outside of their robes, have to look like cotton and, you know, all that kind of stuff. Inside, they're wearing painted silks and that kind of stuff. So their linings are fabulous, but the outside has to look like they, you know, aren't doing so good. So they are in essence the lowest class. So social status is inherited. It was not possible to move out of one's class. You couldn't do it through connections or marriage, and if you married someone from a different class, you were sentenced to death. So they were pretty strict. Okay, so now I have like, you know, a couple of samples of each one of these. Here's an emperor. This is Yasuhito, and he was in power from 1702 to 1737. Or actually, let me rephrase that. He was an emperor. He wasn't necessary. He didn't really have any power. So he was the 114th emperor of Japan because they see themselves as direct descendants of the sun goddess Amaterasu. And so it's seen as an unbroken line from this goddess. So in the 1700s, they had 114 of them. Events would include 2 major earthquakes during his reign. He had at least 14 children by his wife and 5 concubines. He abdicated the throne in 1735 in favor of his first son, and not many people did that. And then he died 2 years later, so that's his life. Here is an example of a shogun. This is Utagawa Yoshitora, and he's the first shogun of the Tokugawa shogunate. And this is, of course, artwork. And sorry, I'm just going on. Here is Tsukioka Yoshitoshi. He's the Tokugawa shogun Iemitsu receiving lords in 1875. You can see this in person if you go to the Museum of Art in Los Angeles County. Now here's the last shogun, and he lived 1837 to 1913. He became the 15th Tokugawa shogun, which Tokugawa is the family name, and the family name always comes first, because unlike the West, where we all think of ourselves as individuals, in Japan and other places in the Far East, you are a part of something else, some bigger organization, whether it's your family, your business, the school you're at, whatever. So your name, your family name, is more important than your individual name, and that's why it comes first, the family name. Anyway, he decided on the restoration of political power to the emperor in 1867 and swore allegiance to the emperor. And so because of that, he's placed in confinement in his home. Now, the Meiji Restoration refers to when, at the end of the Edo period, they took the emperor, who was, he was like a teenager, and put him on the throne, got rid of this guy who's the shogun, and everything starts turning around. And they open up Japan, and they bring in foreigners right and left, and they change, they're throwing out their old way of clothing, they're dressing in Western stuff with those tight little bustles and all that stuff, and they want to paint like the Westerners, everything. And then they had to have Westerners come in and say, stop, what are you doing? But, yeah, but anyway, so, let's go on. Now, daimyo refers to the many lords, there's a picture of one, notice his hat, who controlled parts of Japan during the feudal period. And he plays a key role, they did, in Japanese politics for hundreds of years. So, this is what I kept talking about, the alternate attendance. By edict of the Tokugawa shogunate in 1635, the regional lords are required to reside in Edo during alternate years. This policy was known as Sankin Kotai, and it helped the shoguns maintain control of the daimyo. So there you go. Now, here is one just for an example. Date, so that's his last name, Masamune, and he lived 1567 to 1636. So he's a daimyo during the early Edo period. He is heir to a long line of powerful feudal lords, and he went on to found the modern-day city of Sendai. He is made all the more iconic for his missing eye, and I think, there he is, see? They started at some point in time, it's way before this, actually painting pictures that looked like the real person, and you didn't really see that hundreds of years before this. So anyway, he's missing an eye, and that's what he was, missing an eye. So there you go. Come on. Oh, there. Okay, here's an actual picture of some samurai, and it's from the 1870s and 90s, and you can see it in Los Angeles as well. And here is an actor, actually. Kabuki theater became very popular during this period of time, and it was theater for the common folk. And you could go to bring a lunch and sit there all day long and watch, and it's got lots of vim and vigor and lots of stuff going on, people jumping up and down, and the costumes are incredible. It's different than No theater, N-O-H, where everybody on the stage wears a mask and it's more sedate. The kabuki is for commoners. So anyway, there's a picture of that. Now here's Miyamoto Musashi, and he is a swordsman, a strategist, an artist, a writer. He had a unique double-bladed swordsmanship, and he was undefeated in 62 duels. So he's considered a sword saint. And I've read one of the books. I've read a book about him. It was real interesting. But anyway, this is a woodblock print, and here he is engaging, here he is. This is Miyamoto Musashi, and this is Sasaki Kojiro. Looking kind of, I don't know, and you can guess who won. This guy on top, right? And so there you go. He's armed with 2 wooden swords here, and he's sparring with an old master who defends himself using 2 pot lids, wooden pot lids. Come on. He is the founder of the Niten Ichi-ryu style of swordsmanship, and he authored the Book of 5 Rings and the Path of Aloneness. I think I've seen the Book of 5 Rings at Barnes & Noble. But anyway, in the markdown section. Anyhow, Musashi was a friend of a Tokugawa shogunate general, fighting together with him in the Battle of Sekigahara as part of the Tokugawa army. And this is a training center that's been erected to honor his name and legend. I thought that was kind of neat. Isn't that neat?
Yeah.
Yeah, and this is a Ronin, or at least a picture of one. This is another actor, and it's a woodblock print, ink and color on paper, and that's about it. So, since they're masterless samurai, They're warrior aristocrats of the late Muromachi and Tokugawa periods. Vagrant, disruptive, rebellious. They have no masters, they do cause problems. And this is another actor, he's standing on the bank, and it's by another, it's a woodblock print. So, during the Edo period, samurai are restricted and were forbidden to become employed by another master without their previous master's permission. So because of this, they could not legally take up a new trade. And the problem is, well, there's no wars, it's a time of peace. You don't really need samurais to go around killing people if you're not having a war. And so that, there's trying to find another way to make a living. And many of these ronin become criminals, bandits, highwaymen, or they're joining organized crime. So they're hired muscle for gangs that run gambling rings and brothels and stuff like that because there's no honest work for them. Now the peasants, and this is of course a woodblock print of a peasant. Actually, kind of more, look at this one. He's got the basket on his back. And it's in a triptych of woodblock prints, but I cut that one off probably because it wasn't a peasant. Yeah. According to Confucian philosophy, society could not survive without agriculture. Life for peasants focused on farming in and around their villages. Villages are highly collective. There's pressure to conform and no room to deviate from custom. And that is true there today. They have an expression about the nail that sticks up must be pounded down. Everybody has to be the same. You have to do what the rules are. So, it's very different from here. You know, you can be kind of, well, whatever, we won't get into that. The peasant class owned land, but rights to tax this land were given to the local daimyo. So they're working to produce enough food for themselves and still meet the tax burden, and of course, you know how all that goes. So they weren't doing very well. But anyway, here is a woodblock print, and it's from the series The Tokaido Road that I showed you a picture of, and it's one of the 53 stations. And it's by a very famous woodblock print artist. His name is Utagawa Hiroshige, and he's got scads of it. Now here's the artisans. That's kind of a drawing of them I found, because it was kind of hard to find some. Yes? Did somebody have something they wanted to say?
No, we're just noticing how it is, they're in Western dress.
Yes, yes, here we are. So this is the residence of a foreign merchant from overseas, and they're Portugal and South America. And Portugal, I'm surprised that they're there because they were one of the ones shoving Christianity down the Japanese throats, but you'll see the women really don't have an Asian look to their faces. But after a while, everybody's dressing like that, but not now. Artisans are the skilled workers and makers of handicraft goods during the Edo period. And according to official Confucian ideology, they're valued because they create something with their labor. Not as valued as the farmers, but they're still valued. And of course, that means the merchants aren't valued at all. So they see a new group of people that emerged during this period of time. It's the townspeople. They're called chonin. They're art lovers. They love kabuki theater. They love these woodblock prints, which actually were pretty cheap, and you could get them for a couple of pennies. And there was pictures of kabuki actors. So you could have, I suppose a teenager could have, instead of, I don't know, having the Rolling Stones up, you could have all your favorite kabuki actors on your wall. So anyway, this group involves the merchants and the artisans, and they're prospering in this booming economy. There's an increased demand for luxury goods, but people like the samurai, they can't afford it. They were really hit hard by what was going on. So artists are catering to the shonen tastes and also continuing to produce for the traditional art patrons, who are, of course,
The artisan class, did the people in the artisan class make these?
oh yeah, I guess you could say that. Woodblock printmakers would be in the artisan class. Yeah. Yeah, so they're making the woodblock prints. Everybody's doing good except possibly the Ronin, the samurai, and on the surface, the merchants, because they are seen as, Anyway, this is Hokusai, who is a very, very, very famous Japanese artist. And let me see if I can get, because you're going to see this one. Well, this is only 3 minutes, so we're going to see it. But anyway, Hokusai is very famous, and he was, I believe, alive in the 1700s. He was prolific and did lots and lots of woodblock prints and drawings and this and that. He did books. He was pretty much of a slob from what I could read about him, and his house burned down, and so they lost a huge amount of his drawings. But this particular little clip has to do with Hokusai and the artwork that he created that shows the different livelihoods of people during that period of time. She's speaking Japanese, so you're going to have to read the,
Sometimes.
Yes, thank you. What happened? I went too far. I was pounding it. Okay, here we go. 'Cause I wanted you to notice that he throws Mount Fuji in there a lot. And did you see that in the barrel? You could see the little man working on the barrel, and in the background, through the barrel, you see Mount Fuji. Mount Fuji shows up a lot.
Oh, there it is, yes.
There,
Yeah,
so
there it is. Yeah.
here is some slides of, yeah, see, there it is. Some separate slides
Now, what is this depicting? I don't understand what this is.
They can cement, I don't know.
well, see, he's got a saw up there, and they're sawing, it almost looks like wood or hay or something, and then they're laying it there to dry, maybe. Here, this was the one, the barrel maker, and there's Mount Fuji in the background. Doesn't he have a cute face? Just love that. Okay, now he did a series of booklets on different types of people. Here's a doctor down there, and he's going, and she's showing him her tongue, to, probably because, "Ooh, I don't understand this." And then here, see, this lady's playing this musical instrument, and her tongue's sticking out. Kind of hanging to the side. She's concentrating. This, I think, is a barber. And this was, having to do with the kabuki theater. Yeah. And then here's people that are working on boats and carrying things, and see them over there too. I don't see Mount Fuji here, but And here's another one. This is the one she was talking about. This is the river that they couldn't even build a bridge across, and boats can't go across it. Instead, they use men carrying other men, and see all the little guys trying to get these across. I mean, it would be a very dangerous pastime, to do that. And there's Mount Fuji. And ta-da! There's Mount Fuji again, and there's people rowing. These are, I think these are charcoal, people that make charcoal, so they're burning wood. Okay, this is the bottom class, the merchants. They enjoy a rise in social and economic status, and they're increasingly able to afford an education and the trappings of luxury, so they're breaking social barriers, hobnobbing with samurai at popular haiku and literary clubs. And haiku is a form of poetry. I think you've probably heard of it. I forget what it is. 5 syllables, 7 syllables, 5, something like that. Anyway, these clubs are affording these two classes an opportunity to mingle, and they were previously considered the dregs of society because they deal with money, but their new affluence encourages the growth of art and helps spawn a culture more attuned to the common man. They dress in cotton kimonos and were barred from wearing silk. So that meant that your cotton kimono could have silk on the inside because nobody would see it. By the early Edo period, many of these merchants are emulating the samurai hairstyle, shaving the tops of their heads and pulling back the sides into a similar top knot. And since classes were not allowed to intermingle, it was important that you needed to be able to differentiate between people. Here's a picture of him. See his hair here? So a samurai would shave the top of his head and then pull back his hair into kind of a top knot there. There's another one. Now these are even lower. They don't even have a class. They're called Eta or Hinin. They're untouchables. Just kind of pretty much like they have or did have in India. And they're non-people. They're referred to people that plotted against the emperor, but they also, in the Edo period, made their living as entertainers, guards, or beggars. And they also worked with animals and leather goods. In 1871, their classifications were legally abolished. But up to that point in time, they,
And then when did they become
well, probably depending on what they could do, they're either a peasant or something like that. I mean, they're not gonna rise to be a noble, when everybody knows what you were 2 generations ago, Now, here's a picture of prostitutes in the Yoshiwara district of Tokyo, and they're waiting for customers in the 1890s. And Yoshiwara in Tokyo, which was Edo at the time, was like a red light district. But you could go and have a good time. Singing, dancing, eating, drinking, and all the other things that go along with that. The pleasure quarters are something that must never appear in the world again. They are a place in a system that no reasonable person today would ever seek to replicate. And that was by Tanaka Yuko, who was a professor emeritus at a Japanese university. They were places of sexual exploitations where women were treated as bonded labor, and families would sell their daughters to brothels to pay off family debts, and they were exposed to disease and violence. So, I mean, there were things about it that were really bad.
And if you don't think there's a red light district in Tokyo, you're wrong, there is.
Oh, yeah, I mean, you know, it's, you know.
It's still there.
Oh, yeah. Is it still called Yoshiwara?
I don't remember, it was 20 years ago.
Well, okay. At the end of the Edo period, there were about 6 to 7% samurai, 80 to 85% farmers, 5 to 6% merchants and craftsmen, 1.5% priests for Shinto and Buddhism, and 1.6 were the Eta. So, okay, now we're going to get into ukiyo-e. And it's a genre of Japanese art that flourished from the 17th through the 19th centuries. We still have it today, but it's changed a lot, and hopefully we'll be able to see all that too. Its artists produced woodblock prints, paintings of female beauties, kabuki actors and sumo wrestlers, scenes from history and folktales, travel scenes, landscapes, flora and fauna, erotica. At the time, there's something called pillow books, and they were a book that was given to a young woman when she was to get married, and they were very explicit. I've seen them in museums, and it was to show the woman what she was supposed to be doing when she got married. And I could go into more detail. Suffice it to say that the biggest thing in these pictures was the gonads on everybody. So, you know, it doesn't leave anything to the imagination. There. So here's the Yoshiwara's close ties to Edo culture. They had something to do with all these different things: tea ceremony, festivals, flower arrangement, the woodblock prints, publishing, calligraphy, incense, sumo wrestlers, kabuki, fashion. So, you know, if you wanted to go where things were really hopping, that's where you'd go. Now here's a picture, it's a woodblock print in the Library of Congress. It's from about 1780, and it's called Bathhouse Women. And as you can see, yes, it is, but it's not, it's like the bathhouse where women would go to take a bath. It's not for any other reason than washing, so to speak. Artists rarely carved, this is really important, their own woodblocks for printing. Rather, production is divided between the artist who designs the prints, the carver who cuts the woodblocks, the printer who inks and presses the woodblocks onto handmade paper, and the publisher who finances, promotes, and distributes the work. So it's not a done deal from beginning to end by one person. It's done almost by committee. Yeah, and things changed then in maybe the end of the 19th century, something like that, then they started, there's another whole movement where one person does it all, but not now. And these are some of their tools. This little thing is like, you stick your hand in that handle right here, and then you rub the inked block. Oh, here, see? Here's one that is carved already, and then you do it through a series of your inking one color at a time. And let's see if I have that. Okay, here's another, this is a good one.
Ukiyo-e is a genre of traditional Japanese woodblock printing and painting that thrived during the Edo period.
Okay, I have to stop it. That is The Great Wave, and it's by Hokusai. And this is the one you see everywhere, on t-shirts, on this, that, whatever, bookmarks. So, even if you don't know anything else, we all know that one, right? Okay.
The term ukiyo-e, literally meaning pictures of the floating world in English, refers to a style of art that primarily depicted scenes from the vibrant urban culture of Edo and other major Japanese cities during that time. These artworks often reflected the culture, fashion, and entertainment of the period, portraying a world of courtesans, kabuki actors, sumo wrestlers, landscapes, historical events, and moments of everyday life. To understand ukiyo-e, it is important to delve into the historical context of its creation.
Okay.
Let's journey back to the Edo period, a transformative era in Japan's history. At its heart was Edo, a bustling city that would later become Tokyo. Here, a thriving merchant class known as the Chonin found themselves at the forefront of a cultural revolution. This class occupied a distinct position in the social hierarchy of the time. The Chonin class experienced remarkable economic growth and prosperity throughout the Edo period. Factors such as burgeoning trade, the development of markets, and the rapid urbanization of Edo contributed to their newfound wealth. With disposable income at their disposal, the Chonin class had the means to immerse themselves in a wide array of entertainment, indulge in luxury goods, and support the arts, including the flourishing world of ukiyo-e. Furthermore, they immersed themselves in the vibrant world of kabuki theater, appreciated the artistry of geisha performances, and relished the companionship of courtesans from the pleasure districts. This lifestyle, marked by opulent indulgence and the relentless pursuit of pleasure, was famously known as the wokyu, a term that translates to the floating world. It's often noted that during the Edo period in Japan, acquiring a masterpiece ukiyo-e was as affordable as enjoying a humble bowl of noodles. It was a luxury that didn't require immense wealth, making it a form of art embraced by the Chonin class, who reveled in the cultural explosion of their time. The affordable price allowed most people to decorate their homes with ukiyo-e prints. For the Chonin class, the acquisition of ukiyo-e prints was not just an act of decoration. It was an expression of their social and cultural identity. Woodblock printing technology is at the heart of ukiyo-e, playing a pivotal role in its creation and mass production during the Edo period in Japan. At the core of this technique lie the materials in use. Ukiyo-e artists and craftsmen primarily used cherry wood for their woodblocks. This preference for cherry wood stemmed from its fine grain, remarkable durability, and its exceptional ability to capture intricate details. To achieve the vibrant array of colors, each color within a print necessitated a separate woodblock. These woodblocks were meticulously carved to ensure precise alignment during the printing process, resulting in the intricate and harmonious final compositions that define ukiyo-e. Another crucial material to mention is paper. Washi, the favored medium for ukiyo-e prints, was crafted using traditional Japanese paper-making techniques. Washi featured a smooth surface that absorbed ink effectively, preventing unwanted bleeding or smudging. Furthermore, its durability made it exceptionally suitable for large-scale mass production. Successful designs were frequently reprinted to satisfy continuous demand, with each edition potentially consisting of hundreds or even thousands of copies. Woodblock printing technology was labor-intensive and required the collaboration of skilled artists, carvers, printers, and publishers. Despite its complexity, this technique was instrumental in making ukiyo-e prints accessible to a wide audience, and played a significant role in the cultural explosion of Edo, Japan. Ukiyo-e encompasses a wide array of subject matter, vividly capturing the bustling urban culture and everyday life of the Edo period. These prints provide glimpses into the daily routines of people, offering a window into that era's dynamic urban culture. Interestingly, the similarities between ukiyo-e and Impressionism are striking. Both art forms share the common concept of depicting everyday life in their works. In fact, ukiyo-e played a pivotal role in shaping the Impressionist movement in Western art. Ukiyo-e's portrayal of everyday life in Japan resonated with Western artists, who were increasingly interested in depicting ordinary life rather than just historical or mythological subjects. This shift in focus is evident in Impressionism, where artists like Morin and Degas captured everyday scenes and fleeting moments. Beyond Impressionism, ukiyo-e also contributed to the development of post-Impressionism. During the late 19th century, Western artists actively collected ukiyo-e prints, using them not only as art, but also as source material for their own creative endeavors. Van Gogh, for example, was heavily influenced by Japanese woodblocks in his use of vibrant colors and distinctive compositions. Japanese design sensibilities and aesthetics profoundly influenced these Western artists, resulting in the incorporation of elements such as asymmetry, simplicity, and a heightened focus on nature into Western art. Ukiyo-e's impact can be traced through various artistic movements, from Impressionism to Post-Impressionism, and even beyond, shaping the course of art history. Thank you for joining us, and we hope you enjoy the video.
That was a good one, right? Okay, so if you're gonna sit there and read a woodblock print, there's some stuff to know about it. The title of this series, which is right here in this little block, is 36 Views of Mount Fuji. And the prints are often part of a series which people would collect over time. And then the title of the print is Yoshida on the Tokaido Road, and then that's there. And here is the artist's signature, Hokusai. And the thing with Hokusai is he changed his name a number of times during his life. I believe he lived till he was about 90. And I have a quote of his somewhere, but I don't think we've got there yet. Anyway, here's the publisher's seal as well.
So the artists and the publisher were important, but the carvers and the printers,
Yeah,
they were just technicians.
probably.
Yeah.
I mean, the designer
Uh-huh.
of it, you know, is seen as the artist.
Yeah.
But if they hadn't had the people carving the blocks, you know, and they didn't have the people that were printing it, I don't know what they, you know, because they didn't even think to do it, one person doing all of it.
But it's
Yeah.
not totally uncommon, but even in modern art too, there are artists who are incredibly famous who have studio assistants who do the work.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. I think it happened a lot in the Renaissance, if I'm thinking of it. Yeah. And these people had studios too. Yeah. Here's the censor's seal, because the censors, after 1799, the government censors had to approve each print to ensure designs were not immoral or subversive. And here is the artist's signature. This is Hiroshige, who's also very famous. And the title of his work is 53 Stations of the Tokaido Road. We saw one before, but this kind of gives you just an idea of where to look for things. And here's the publisher's surname is on the umbrella. Okay, here's some masters of woodblock prints. And this, I believe, is a print by Hiroshige. Okay, I tried to start with some of the more early ones. This is Hishikawa Moronobu, and he's 1618 to 1694.
So is he the guy designing it, or cutting it, or printing it?
He is the guy that's designing it.
Okay.
He's not carving it or printing it or, you know, any of that, but he would be the person that came up with the design. And he helped popularize the ukiyo-e genre in the late 17th century. Here's another one of his, and I've seen stuff like this. In fact, I took, my second bachelor's was on Asian art history, and I was going to Portland, University of Portland, and it was right downtown near the Portland Art Museum, and we were able to go in there and see this stuff. And I mean, I have to tell you, the first time I saw it in person, you're like, well, you know, it almost moves you to tears. And I did that when I saw Whistler's mother for the first time at the Louvre. I started crying in front of Whistler's mother. So, you know, get so emotional. So, anyway, this is a very famous one. It's called Beauty Looking Back. And of course, it's the beautiful woman with a kimono, and she's turning around, and they made it into a stamp design around 1948. Hand-painted ukiyo-e pictures like this one were not the original pictures used for woodblock print reproductions, but rather singular pieces that were made to be viewed in their own right. So he's displaying the fashions of the day. So this particular one is more of a hand-painted one. This is courtesans parading with servants, and they're probably in the pleasure district, you know. And here's the lobby of a brothel from Yoshiwara. It's dated 1680. These are all by Morinobu. And here's a women dressmaking and artisans at work. This was at the Brooklyn Museum, so that's a little closer to home. And here's two beauties, ink and color and silk. Now, we're at Utagawa Kunisada, and he is a ukiyo-e artist, and he's considered the most popular, prolific, and commercially successful designer in 19th century Japan. At the end of the Edo period, Hiroshige, Kuniyoshi, and Kunisada were the three best representatives of Japanese color woodblock cuts in Edo. So between the 30s and the 70s, they reevaluated Hiroshige's work and Kuniyoshi's, and now these two are now counted among the masters of their art. Apparently they're, you know. But anyway, there's like a self-portrait. Now, this guy is on YouTube, if anyone's interested, and he is just great. So here, let's listen to what he has to say. Oops, stop. Oh, there we go.
Welcome, Japanese woodblock print collectors and enthusiasts. Today we are going to talk about one of the true giants of the ukiyo-e world, the artist Utagawa Kunisada. As usual, I'll start with some background bio information, and then we'll look at selected prints from his body of work. Kunisada was born in 1786 in Honjo, near Edo. His father was a merchant and a poet and owned a ferry. The family had enough money so he could take part in the arts, and he studied painting. In the year 1800, at the age of 14, he became a student of Utagawa Toyokuni, the head of the famous Utagawa school. And later he took the artist's name, Kunisada. By 1813, he was considered to be the top ukiyo-e artist in Japan, even more popular than Hokusai, Hiroshige, and Kuniyoshi. One of the reasons for this popularity is that he was the most prolific print designer with over 20,000 designs in his 60-year career. That includes books, prints, and paintings. So do the quick math, and that's 350 designs a year. In fact, in 1852 alone, it was said that he produced over 700 designs. Now, obviously, one person can't do that alone, but by that time he had a big studio with a lot of assistants. There were over 50 artists that worked at his studio, many famous ones among them, including Sadahide, Kunisada II, Yoshitoyo, Sadanobu, Kunichika, Chikanobu, Kunikai, and of course, many, many others. Side note, it's not unusual for a popular artist to use assistants to co-produce artwork. This arrangement was also popular throughout Europe and America. Michelangelo, Rembrandt, Rubens, Andy Warhol, and Jeff Koons are some examples. Okay, enough background. I'm going to take you through some of Kunisada's print series, semi-chronologically, starting with his Great Performances series in 1815. And I'm starting with actors because actor prints, or yakusha-e, made up about 70% of all of his prints. In this first print, the actor is playing the role of the greengrocer's daughter, Yaoya Oshichi. And she was supposed to be a teenager and not too smart, which I think you can see comes across in this print. You can learn more about her true story and sad fate in my video on the Suzugamori execution grounds. In this next print, we see the dramatic Mie pose of this actor as he transforms himself into the thunder god and flies to Kyoto to fight his enemy. Note how distinctive the characters are in these early prints. I think Kunisada was influenced at that time by Toyokuni's style. And here's an example of an actor print by Toyokuni, so you can see what I mean. But as we go through this video, you'll also see that Kunisada's style changes quite a lot as time goes on. Let's jump a few years to 1818 and look at his early Bijinga series. Bijinga means beautiful women pictures, and Kunisada was famous for his Bijinga, and they made up about 20% of his body of work. The Pride of Edo is a beautiful set of 10 prints comparing the famous places of Edo to the women of the area. Many of these prints show the stylistic influence of Utamaro. What is interesting here is that these women are not all fancy, dolled-up geishas, but working women going about their daily activities. Now let's skip to 1832. Kunisada did several series of actors' portraits reflected in mirrors. See how he uses the ornate black frame of the mirror as the frame of the picture. There is a colorful cloth wrapped around the edges as a decorative element. And the kanji, or text description, is outside the frame on the paper. This is a clever concept, but he wasn't the first artist to do faces reflected in mirrors. Here's one designed by Shuncho about 40 to 50 years earlier, and a similar beautiful print by Utamaro. But see how Kunisada's version is much more stylized. The actor is not literally peering into the mirror. The mirror is a device to frame or reflect the portrait of the actor. Kunisada designed very few landscape prints, but in the late 1830s, he published a 53 Stations of the Tokaido series. This series had a beautiful woman in the foreground with a stylized cloud element separating them from the landscapes in the background. Take a look at the background here in this print of Mishima, a village with travelers on a misty evening. Now look at this print by Hiroshige of Mishima. Notice the similarities. Here, I'll fade back and forth. Kunisada borrowed and adapted most of the landscape backgrounds from Hiroshige's popular Tokaido series. Here's another example. In the foreground, a beauty travels on an ox. In the background, a snowy scene. And here we can see Hiroshige's print of night snow at Kambara. The general thought here is that Kunisada and or the publisher did this in order to help promote Hiroshige's Tokaido series. At this time, Hiroshige was an up-and-coming artist, so it was a win-win. Kunisada got his amazing Tokaido backgrounds, and Hiroshige got the prestige of being associated with the top artist of the time. Hiroshige's Tokaido series went on to be extremely popular and jumpstart his artistic career. It reminds me of many of today's musical artists that get parts of their tracks sampled by more famous musical artists, and that association helps boost their career. When I get to the 1840s, I start to go crazy because there are so many series I like, but I'll start with a series I didn't even know existed before doing the research for this video. Shadow Pictures of an Auspicious Age, a half-length Bijin series designed in 1844. This is a beauty reading by lantern light. I love the hard edges of the light and the dramatic shading. And this print of a woman peeping through the screens at something interesting happening on the other side. Now we get to one of my favorite series, the 53 Parallels for the Tokaido Road, a collaborative Tokaido series by Kunisada, Hiroshige, and Kuniyoshi, published around 1845. These prints are by Kunisada. And I love the scene of the woman fishing. Look at the details on her kimono and her focus on the wriggling crawfish. Then there's this one of a woman making shibori cloth, which is a dyeing process where the cloth is wrapped around pebbles and it creates circular patterns. You'll see this patterned cloth on many kimonos in ukiyo-e prints. By 1852, when Kunisada was 67 years old, his studio was producing the most work ever, and he produced his most famous Tokaido and actor series of 139 prints called 53 Stations Along the Tokaido with Parodies of Actors. In this series, we see the kabuki actor in the foreground, and then there's a cloud-like element that separates the actor from the background. And then in the background, we see scenes from the Tokaido stations. Kunisada was the first artist to use the Tokaido theme as a backdrop for his actor portraits. If you notice, the cartouche in the upper right also has objects that relate to that play or location. One interesting aspect of this series is that although the prints can quite easily stand by themselves, many of them can also be combined into diptychs or triptychs because the backgrounds match and the actors have some relationship to each other. One source I read said that some of the prints in this series were so popular, 7,000 copies were made. So let's go down the rabbit hole for a second, and let's say that 7,000 first edition copies were made of a print back in 1852. And let's estimate that 50% of those prints were lost or destroyed in the past 170 years. I don't think that's unreasonable. Then let's guess 25% of the remaining ones are in very poor condition. So that leaves us with 2,635 decent prints. Let's assume 1,000 of those are in museum, college, or gallery collections. So that leaves us with about 1,635 decent prints floating around the world for collectors like us to potentially purchase. And the cost for one of these prints in very good condition is often less than $500. And that's amazing to me. This esoteric woodblock medium that requires such artistry in the design, carving, and printing. Plus, here we have the most popular artist and his most popular series in very finite numbers for what I believe is a relatively low cost. Okay? So all those assumptions I just made underscores one of the issues in woodblock print collecting. We don't really know how many prints were printed in the 1800s. I'm sure at the time the publishers kept meticulous records, but I've never seen any, and I don't know if any survived. If you have some insights, please send me a note.
Okay. Isn't that good? He's on YouTube, and he has a bunch of these, just a bunch, and they're just wonderful, I think. I really like, I was like, wow, now I don't have to say it, you know? Anyway, so here is a woodblock print by Utagawa Kunisada, and it's in the Maruyama Pleasure District of Nagasaki, and it's at the Met, so that's kind of fun. Look at this chandelier, that's, love it. This is Twilight Snowfall at Ueno, and, you know, it's three beauties together. It looks like one of those prints that you could separate, doesn't it, what he was talking about? Yeah, because all the backgrounds seem to go together. And here's fighting in the snow. And here's the Hours of the Yoshiwara. I'm not sure what these girls are doing, but, you know, and looks, there's a man. Did I hear something?
It's like carrying Betty, it looks like.
Yeah, see, I should mention that I could keep going for hours, so, 15 minutes? Okay, so in 15 minutes, well, actually, in 10 minutes, somebody clear their throat, so if you have something to say, you can get it in, you know. Oh, okay, so here's, Kunisada, and these are the wedding rocks. And yes, they're at the beach, and I can't think of the top of my head where exactly, but yeah, they have the ropes like that, and they are called the wedding rocks. Here is another one. I think that this is an actor. And this, I have a whole bunch of pictures of these sumo wrestlers, and I love this guy's rump. I just think it's great. Love it. And then this one. Okay, here's, I gotta do this guy. This guy, Toyohara, and I believe he's a student of Utagawa Kunisada. And you know what happened was that this block here went up, and so it covered up his name. But anyway, we'll just call him Toyohara. I think that's his last name. He's an alcoholic and a womanizer. And so he portrayed women deemed beautiful, and also did contemporary social life. And he worked successfully in the Edo period and also into the Meiji period after Japan opened up. So here's one of his, this looks like another triptych too, Model Heroes of Magic in 1879. And here's another actor in the image of a samurai. Notice their toes. See? And when they're clenched like that, that means that, you know, they're on high alert and stuff. I had somebody ask me about that when I was giving the class. I had to look it up. So here's another triptych, and this looks like he's, I don't know whether he's drowning or swimming. Oops. That was quick. Here's a spring outing in a villa, and he's using the vanishing point perspective. So keep that in mind. That's kind of something that doesn't happen that much in Japanese art. And this deep red makeup on the actor's face means anger, obstinacy, indignation, forcefulness. So This is a big head portraiture. And Toyohara Kunichika. There. There's a bazillion of these, or it seems that way. Okay, here's Hokusai, and hopefully we can get a few more into this. He lived 1760 to 1849, and he's best known as the author of that woodblock print, 36 Views of Mount Fuji, and that's the one with the big wave in it. Now, this is a quote. From the age of 6, I had a mania for drawing the shapes of things. When I was 50, I had published a universe of designs, but all I have done before the age of 70 is not worth bothering with. At 75, I'll have learned something of the pattern of nature, of animals, of plants, trees, birds, fish, and insects. When I am 80, you will see real progress. At 90, I shall have cut my way deeply into the mystery of life itself. At 100, I shall be a marvelous artist. Isn't that great? And of course, we all know what that is. And this is also by him. And I'm going to keep going because this is another, oh, okay. Oh, all right. Okay, that's it. Sorry, folks. Thank you. So, does anybody have any questions? Like, what else is on